If anyone opposes this marriage, who speaks now or shuts up forever? Official's words had barely left his mouth when a deadly silence took over the hall. I oppose it, shouted Maya Thompson, only 12, in the middle of the altar, with her face red and tight cell phone in her trembling hand. The whole hall was paralyzed. The orchestra stopped. The guests were astonished. Some even overthrew their cups. The festive atmosphere has disappeared instantly. Dad, if I don't speak now, no one will ever hear me, Maya exclaimed with a tremendous body, but a firm and determined voice. It was the daughter of the Tipian Mogus, Richard Thompson, interrupting the most anticipated marriage of the city before all, revealing what no one wanted to know. The bride, Victoria Sterling, pretended that this was just a children's play. He fought to contain the nervous laughter, but his gaze denounced fury. The father, Richard, seemed stunned, not knowing where to look. The hall full of rich and influential people has become the scene of a live drama. This is not a child, Victoria said, trying to keep the composure. Maya let out a sigh, fixing her eye on the bride without hesitation, as if she could no longer contain her pain, swallow the humiliation. The guests moved uncomfortable, recording everything with their cell phones. The sophistication of the flowers, the lights, suddenly seemed insignificant in the face of the courage of a girl tired of supporting suffering in silence. No one could have predicted that this elegant ceremony would become such a scandal. Maya lifted her cell phone and a firm voice stated, I have proof of everything. At that moment, the silence intensified. The celebrant was perplexed, not knowing how to react. All the eyes settled on the girl who seemed to grow there, challenging everyone. The nanny Sarah, watching everything from the bottom of the hall, held the tears. She knew exactly what Maya was talking about. Victoria tried to approach with a forced smile. Honey, you're nervous. Let's talk after the ceremony. But Maya stepped back, squeezing the phone harder. No, I already waited too much. You all need to hear it now. Richard looked at his daughter with a mixture of confusion and growing concern. I had never seen Maya so determined, so adult. Something in her eyes revealed a forced maturity that only exists in children who grew up too fast, carrying too heavy secrets to her age. The murmurs began to spread through the crowd. The cameras of the guests remained linked, capturing every second of that moment that would become viral within hours. Maya took a deep breath and looked straight at her father. Dad, do you really know the woman with whom you are getting married? As they watched that brave child face an entire hall of powerful adults, something in Maya's eyes revealed a determination that only exists in those who have faced much worse storms and survived to tell the story. There, in the face of all the surprised looks, she kept firm as one who holds a secret too powerful to be revealed ahead of time. If you are enjoying this story of courage and justice, be sure to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple revelation would become the catalyst of a revolution that no one would ever forget. The lounge that had previously witnessed only perfect ceremonies now became a makeshift court. Maya remained at the altar, her small hands shaking slightly as she held her cell phone, as if it were her only weapon against a world of powerful adults. Victoria Sterling tried to recompose, adjusting the veil with calculated movements. Dear Maya, Victoria said in a melodious voice that hid poison, you are clearly disturbed by home changes. This is normal for children your age. She turned to the guests with a forced smile. You know how it is. Divorce, new marriage, sometimes children fantasize situations to get attention. Richard Thompson looked at his daughter with growing concern. In recent months, Maya had become increasingly quiet, almost invisible in her own home. He had attributed this to late grief by his mother, who had died 3 years earlier in a car accident. Victoria always said that the girl needed firm limits and less treat. Maya, come here, he called Richard gently, extending his hand. We can talk about it after the ceremony. But Maya took another step back, her eyes shining with a determination that surprised everyone. No, Dad, you need to hear it now. Everyone needs it. She looked straight at Victoria. Tell them about the basement, Victoria. Tell us about the nights you would lock me there when Daddy was traveling. A shocked murmur toured the crowd. Victoria paled, but quickly recovered the composure. This is ridiculous, Maya, for you are inventing absurd stories. Richard, you need to control your daughter. Sarah, the nanny, who watched everything from the bottom of the hall, felt her heart accelerate. She had always suspected something, but had never gotten concrete evidence. Sometimes she found Maya crying in the bathroom. Sometimes the girl came up with bruises that Victoria explained as accidents during play. I have everything recorded, Maya said, her voice gaining strength. Every cruel word, every threat, every night that made me hungry because I said I was a parasite that only caused expenses. Victoria laughed nervously. Richard, are you seeing this? The girl clearly has psychological problems. Maybe it's time to look for a specialized hospitalization. But something in Richard's eyes had changed. He began to remember details he had ignored. Maya always avoiding being alone with Victoria, the drastic change in her daughter's behavior, strange excuses for scratches and injuries. Margaret Sterling, Victoria's mother, stood out indignant from the first row. This spoiled child is ruining the most important marriage of my daughter's life. Richard, will you allow this scandal? Show the recordings, Maya, said Richard, his voice now firm as steel. The tycoon who had built an empire of scratch recognized the truth when he saw it, even when he hurt his own blindness. Victoria tried to approach Maya, but the girl backed up instinctively. You won't touch me anymore, said Maya, and for the first time in months your voice sounded strong and clear. Never again. Dr. Harrison, the Thompson family lawyer present among the guests, watched everything with growing alarm. As Richard's legal advisor for years, he had known the legal implications of what was being alleged. Discreetly, he began to record everything on his own cell phone. The silence in the hall was deafening. The guests, who minutes earlier they celebrated champagne and gossip, now witnessed the collapse of a carefully built scam. Every word of Maya echoed with the authority of those who finally found the courage to tell her truth. Victoria, realizing that she was losing control of the situation, changed her strategy. Very well, Maya, if you want so much attention, let's give you. His voice now carried a dangerous coldness. But remember, lying about adults has serious consequences. Do you really want to continue this scam? The veiled threat did not go unnoticed by Richard, who finally began to see the woman with whom she was about to marry in a completely different light. Maya, however, did not go back. On the contrary, his chin rose with dignity that impressed even the most skeptical guests. But what no one imagined was that the recordings on Maya's cell phone would reveal a much larger conspiracy than simple household abuse. Victoria was not just a cruel stepmother. She was the architect of a meticulously planned plan that would involve inheritance, life insurance, and secrets that could destroy much more than just a marriage. And while everyone watched that brave girl face her demons, something in Victoria's eyes revealed that she still had letters on her sleeve, letters that could turn that revelation into something much more dangerous than anyone could imagine. What happened next turned that wedding room into a silent battlefield. Maya took a deep breath and pushed the play button on her cell phone. Victoria's voice echoed through the lounge speakers with crystal-clear clarity that made everyone's blood freeze. Stop crying for this pathetic dead. Your mother was a failed and you're going the same way. The recording was still relentless. If you tell your father anything, I'll say you are making up stories to get attention. Who do you think he will believe? The impact was instantaneous and devastating. Guests let their cups fall to the floor. Margaret Sterling tried to get up to defend her daughter, but her legs failed. Richard Thompson seemed to have aged 10 years in seconds, his face completely pale as he heard the poisonous words come out of the speakers. You are a parasite in this house, Maya. When I marry your father, I will make sure you learn your place. Victoria's voice in the recording was loaded with a cruelty that no one had imagined to exist behind her elegant facade. Victoria desperately tried to turn off the sound, but Maya had connected the cell phone directly to the lounge's audio system. This was edited. She manipulated the recordings, shouted Victoria, but her own voice, shy, betrayed despair. Sarah, the nanny, covered her mouth with her hands, tears running down her face. She had always known that something was wrong, but had never imagined the extent of cruelty. Dr. Harrison kept recording everything in Yu's cell phone, documenting every second of that collapse. Your father doesn't care about you. If you called, you would have realized what is happening under your own nose. The recording continued without mercy. You're just an inconvenient reminder of his dead wife. When I'm in control, you'll find out what it's like to be really forgotten. Richard approached Maya with staggering steps like a man in trance. My daughter, my God, what did I do? His voice came out like a broken whisper, loaded with guilt and horror. Margaret Sterling finally found his voice. Victoria, as you could, a child. But the words died in her throat when she realized that her own daughter had turned into something unrecognizable before her eyes. Maya paused the recording and looked straight at Victoria. You said I would never be heard, that no one would believe me. His voice now carried a force that impressed to the most skeptical adults. But you have forgotten something important. I'm my father's daughter, and he taught me that the truth always finds a way. Maya's cell phone contained not only a recording but dozens of them, months of carefully collected evidence, each cruel conversation documented with surgical accuracy. Victoria had completely underestimated the intelligence and determination of the stepdaughter he had tried to break. She has more recordings, someone whispered in the crowd, and a murmur of horror spread through the hall. Dr. Harrison approached Richard. As a family lawyer, I need to inform you that we have enough evidence for criminal proceedings. Child abuse, psychological coercion. His voice was professional, but his eyes revealed the indignation of a man who had witnessed something unforgivable. Victoria tried a last desperate card. Richard, you can't believe her. I love you. We planned a life together. But his words sounded empty and pathetic in the face of the irrefutable evidence that still echoed in the memory of all present. But what no one in the hall imagined was that Maya's recordings revealed only the tip of the iceberg. Hidden in the archives of his cell phone was the evidence of a much more sinister plan. Victoria had not chosen Richard for love, but for something much more calculating and dangerous. The true extension of his manipulation was about to surface, and when that happened, no one in that hall would come out the same way he had entered. While everyone soothed the horror of what they had just heard, Maya remained at the altar with the serenity of those who finally found her voice. After months planning this moment of justice, Maya pressed another button on her cell phone, and a new recording started playing. This time, Victoria's voice sounded even more cruel and calculating. Richard's will is stored in the office safe. When he dies, you won't see a penny. I already made it. Richard's blood froze. He vaguely remembered Victoria insisting to change his will a few months earlier, claiming tax issues. At the time, he had blindly trusted his explanations of heritage protection and succession planning. You're lying, Victoria shouted, but her voice trembled in a revealing way. This recording has been manipulated. A child doesn't understand anything about wills. Dr. Harrison approached Richard urgently. Mr. Thompson, I need to see this will immediately. If unauthorized changes, his voice carried the severity of those who understood the legal implications perfectly. Maya continued to play the recordings with surgical accuracy. The next revelation was even more devastating. When your daughter turns 18, I'm going to send her to a boarding school in Europe, far enough to ever bother again. Richard will never know what really happened to her. The whole hall was absolutely silent. Margaret Sterling, Victoria's mother, covered her face with her hands, finally understanding the extent of her own daughter's wickedness. Victoria, what did you become? He whispered, horrified. I have 47 recordings, Maya announced calmly, holding her cell phone as a lethal gun holds. 47 conversations where she plans how to get rid of me and steal everything from my father. His voice now sounded with the authority of a prosecutor presenting evidence in court. Victoria tried to desperately approach Richard. Dear, you can't believe her. We're a family. I love you. But his words sounded pathetic and empty in the face of irrefutable evidence. Richard looked at Victoria as if she were seeing a stranger. 47 times, he repeated slowly. 47 times you planned to destroy my daughter and steal our fortune. His voice was loaded with a cold fury that scared even the most distant guests. Sarah, the nanny, finally found courage to speak. Mr. Thompson, I always knew something was wrong. Sometimes I found Maya crying in the bathroom after the educational conversations with Mrs. Sterling. His words were like another nail in the coffin of Victoria's reputation. A new recording began to play, and this time Victoria's voice carried a killer coldness. If he discovers our plan before marriage, you know what to do. An accident can happen to anyone, even with inconvenient children. The impact was seismic. Several guests got up abruptly, some leaving the hall with expressions of horror. The veiled threat against Maya's life had turned that of child abuse into something much more sinister, a possible criminal conspiracy. Dr. Harrison was already on the phone with the authorities. We need an investigation team here immediately. We have evidence of threats against Les and possible testamentary fraud. Victoria realized that she had completely lost control of the situation. His mask of elegance finally fell completely, revealing the pure desperation of someone who sees his meticulously built plans to collapse in real time. You don't understand, shouted Victoria to Maya. Your family has too much money for people like you. I deserved a part of it. The spontaneous confession was captured by the dozens of cell phones that recorded every second of that collapse. Marcus Sterling, cousin of Victoria and expert in forensic technology, was among the guests. He approached Maya and kindly asked to examine the cell phone. With your permission, I can check the authenticity of the recordings right here, so that there is no doubt. Within minutes, Marcus had connected the device to a portable laptop. Metadatos confirm. Authentic without editing recordings with geolocation of Thompson residence. Impossible to falsify with this accuracy. His technical analysis destroyed any chance of Victoria denying the evidence. Richard knelt before Maya, tears running down his face. Forgive me, my daughter. Forgive me for being so blind. It was the first time in months that father and daughter were truly looking at each other. And at that moment, everyone in the hall witnessed the rebirth of a bond that had almost been destroyed forever. Victoria made a last, desperate attempt of manipulation. Richard, think about what we're throwing away. Our plans, our life together. This child is destroying our future. But Maya still had one last letter in her sleeve. With firm fingers, she accessed a special folder on her cell phone. I haven't finished yet, he said calmly. This recording will explain why Mom really died. The silence that followed was different from everyone else. This time, even Victoria paled completely. realizing that her victim had discovered the darkest secret of all. The truth about that tragedy was about to surface, and when that happened, the consequences would be far beyond a simple canceled marriage. Maya took a deep breath and looked straight at her father before reproducing the final recording. This was done 3 months ago when Victoria thought I was sleeping. His voice now carried a frightening serenity to a 12-year-old. Victoria's voice echoed through the speakers with a coldness that froze the blood of all present. Elizabeth's accident was not exactly an accident, dear. Brakes can fail when you know the right people. The impact was devastating and instantaneous. Richard Thompson staggered as if he had punched his stomach. Margaret Sterling shouted and fell back in his chair. Several guests ran to the exits, unable to process the magnitude of what they just heard. She confessed to killing Mom, Maya said calmly as if he was commenting on time. And I plan to do the same thing to me when I turned 18 and could inherit Mom's money. Victoria tried a last desperate card, running toward Maya. You don't understand what you are doing. This recording was taken from context. But Sarah, the nanny, blocked her way with a fierce determination that surprised everyone. Dr. Harrison was already coordinating with the authorities via telephone. We need a forensic team and homicide researchers. We have evidence of confession of murder and conspiracy. His voice trembled with indignation and horror. Richard approached Victoria with an expression that no one in the hall had ever seen before. You killed Elizabeth. You killed my daughter's mother. Each word came out like a death sentence. And I was planning to kill Maya too. Richard, please let me explain. Victoria tried to approach, but he retreated as if she was radioactive. There is no explanation for this, Richard said with a coldness that rivaled with Victoria itself. You are a monster. Marcus Sterling, who had technically analyzed the recordings, approached his cousin with an expression of absolute disgust. Victoria, how you could? Our family will never recover from this shame. Maya went to the guests who remained in the hall, many recording everything on their cell phones. I wanted everyone to know the truth. My mother didn't die in an accident. She was murdered by a woman who wanted to steal our family and our lives. Victoria's confession about Elizabeth's murder had turned that marriage into a crime scene. Sirens began to sound in the distance, approaching quickly. Victoria, realizing that she was completely lost, made a last pathetic attempt at escape, but the guests themselves stopped her. You don't understand, shouted Victoria in total despair. I deserved that life. She had everything and didn't even value. Richard never loved her as she loves me. But his words sounded empty and pathetic in the face of the irrefutable evidence of his crimes. Maya had documented not only children's abuse, but the confession of a calculated and cold murder. Police arrived in minutes, taking Victoria handcuffed as she shouted incoherent accusations and desperate denials. Margaret Sterling, devastated by the discovery that he had created a monster, asked for forgiveness between tears to Richard and Maya. Dr. Harrison approached Richard. With this evidence, we will not only achieve life imprisonment for Victoria, but also the reopening of the investigation into Elizabeth's death. Justice will finally be done. Victoria Sterling's trial has become one of the most accompanied cases in the country. Sentenced to life imprisonment for premeditated murder and conspiracy, she lost everything: freedom, reputation, and even the support of her family. Margaret Sterling moved to another state, unable to endure the shame of creating a killer. Sarah hugged Maya tenderly, whispering, "You were very brave, dear. Your mother would be proud." Richard knelt before his daughter, tears running freely on his face. Forgive me, Maya, for everything, for not seeing, for not protecting you, for almost marrying your mother's killer. Maya hugged her father for the first time in months. Now we can start over, Daddy. No more lies, no more secrets. 2 years have passed since that fateful day. Richard Thompson had sold the mansion where so many painful memories inhabited, buying a smaller and more welcoming house in a quiet neighborhood. Maya, now 14, had flourished under the loving care of her present father and Sarah, who officially became part of the family. Richard never married, dedicating all his energy to rebuilding his relationship with his daughter. He dramatically reduced his business trips, participated in all school meetings, and never lost a Maya recital or presentation. The girl has become a defender of children victims of abuse, speaking in schools about the importance of denouncing dangerous situations. Its history inspired the creation of a state law that facilitated the process of denunciation for minors at risk. The hall that had been decorated to celebrate a wedding was now empty except for the Thompson family and a few true friends. Maya had not only saved herself, but she had also given her mother the justice she deserved. Dr. Harrison continued to represent the Thompson family, ensuring that part of Victoria's confiscated fortune was intended for child protection organizations. Maya turned her pain into purpose, he used to say. She proved that justice is not old. While father and daughter left the hall hand in hand, followed by Sarah, Everyone knew that that family was finally free to heal and rebuild their lives on the solid base of the truth. Maya's courage inspired thousands of children around the world to find her voice against abuse. She had proved that even at the darker moments, the truth has the power to illuminate the way to justice. Elizabeth Thompson finally rested in peace, knowing that her daughter had not only survived, but thriving, becoming the strong and courageous person that she always knew that Maya could be. Maya's story spread quickly through social networks, inspiring a whole generation to believe that courage is not old and that the truth, even when painful, always prevails over the lie. She has shown that sometimes the greatest revenge is simply to survive and prosper, turning pain into purpose and suffering into strength to help others. If this story of courage and justice has touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more narratives that show how the truth always finds a way, even in the darkest moments of human life.